Warmth is a very important factor for dementia residents in dementia units, and it can easily be overlooked, especially in the winter in the colder climates, such as here in Christchurch, New Zealand, in the southern hemisphere, and indeed the northern hemisphere similarly. Now, the reason why warmth is overlooked so often by relatives of residents in dementia units, number of reasons. Firstly, when relatives visit dementia residents in the winter, it's generally in the toasty warm lounge. So they don't think that the heating may not be on in the corridors and bedroom. And indeed, when they do go to their parents' bedroom, then the sun's coming in, it's warm, they've got a light jacket on, so they don't notice it's chilly necessarily. And indeed, for the dementia resident themselves, who's often freezing at night with a very thin nightie, cold sheets and no decent duvet or warmth, they're not able to remember, because of recent memory loss, to tell their relative that they're cold at night. So all of this culminates in a very complex situation where often the dementia resident, a whole corridor, can be cold all winter if the heating's not turned on for whatever reason, and this does happen. So you really need to investigate these things and just make sure that everything's in place for your parent and that the room is warm at night. Now, the best thing to do really is to come and visit your parent when the sun's gone down, when it's colder, well after dinner. Sit in the room without a jacket on, with just a thin shirt, like, your mother's no doubt wearing a thin nightie and maybe a thin dressing gown. So similarly flimsy attire, so you get to feel what it is that she's feeling. And indeed, she will, chances are, be feeling colder than you, because elderly ladies in their 80s and 90s are usually slim by that time, so they haven't got the fat insulation, and they're lightly clad. So all of that makes for a more challenging situation in terms of temperature. So sit in the room for half an hour, not just 5 minutes, but a good half an hour, so the body temperature will adjust to what the room temperature is, and see how you feel the temperature is. And if it's chilly for you, it will definitely be chilly for your mother. So that being the case, a number of things need to be put in place. Firstly, bring in a heater. Put a notice on the wall, or inform the carer and the charge nurse, or do all three, better still, that you want the heater turned on at this temperature every night in the room for your mother. That's the first thing. Second thing, ask the nurse whether the room heating and floor heating or any heating can be turned on, like it may well be in other facilities in the retirement village, which you can also check out at night in the hospital and elsewhere. If it's warm there, but not at the dementia unit, chances are it hasn't been turned on. So sort that out. Next thing, bedding. Check out the bedding. If it's cold sheets, polystyrene sort of nylon type cover and a thin non-woolen, blanket, well, that's not going to give any warmth. So you need to just bring in a whole new set of equipment, bedding attire, warm sheets, nice feather duvet, a woolen mohair rug, both for the bed and for your mother's knees, feather pillow, and a good warm pillowcase. Get all that sorted. That's one trip. And also clothing. Make sure plenty of woolen cardigans, woolen jerseys, nice warm light fabric, and that her clothes are warm and comfortable for the winter. Maybe slippers, and indeed another set of attire for going out in the winter, making sure she's not penalised with, attire and not going out because she hasn't got the gear to go out in, but nice woolly scarf, hat, mittens, and a nice jacket, and good solid safe shoes with a good sole that's grippy for when she's out and about in the world. So all these things, it's a lot to put in place initially, but it just needs to be looked at and viewed from the resident's perspective. How can they manage to stay warm in such a facility? How can they manage to go outside? It's similar to how we would manage, except that there's a lot of added layers, institutionalized layers that go on. And of course, they've got recent memory loss, so they can't communicate to you what's going on. So that's why you have to be extra vigilant and be their eyes, so to speak, be their ears, be their senses, so that you can interpret for them what it is that they need. Now, not to assume that everything's just going to be in place in a dementia unit. You'll come in and the party line will be, oh, you don't need to bring in anything here. It's all provided. Everything's fine, you know, and it's very convenient to think, oh, yes, good. Well, mum's set up, no trouble. We pay the bills and that's it. No, no, no. There's a lot to look out for, a lot to manage, a lot to be vigilant about, and to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks. Now, it's not necessarily that it's intentional that all these things happen, but it does happen, and so you need to be the one to find out and make sure that it doesn't happen, so your parent's not penalised. And the wonderful thing is, if you do find out, for example, that the heating's not on the north-facing corridor, but the southern-facing corridor it is, if you work that out and get it changed, you're helping not just your parent, but all the other people, all the other dementia residents in the corridor. So it's great service to humanity to help, and important that these people have quality of life and we look out for them, you know, and don't just brush it under the carpet. So Residents' Voice and Residents' Rise, I've written about everything in the description below on Amazon. Good reading. Thank you for your viewing, likes and subscriptions.